Hi, my name is Alec Cook, and this is Youth-Centered Practice, a toolkit for service providers from Minds of London-Middlesex. The Mental Health Incubator for Disruptive Solutions, Minds of London-Middlesex, is a social innovation lab focused on developing disruptive solutions to promote the mental health and emotional well-being of transitional age youth in our community. Interventions focus on developing and supporting innovative solutions that explore the need for systems-level change with an emphasis on the educational and mental health care context. Youth-centered practice was created and developed utilizing youth participatory action research, YPAR. YPAR as a framework is focused on engaging both youth and adults within a community to work alongside one another in a non-hierarchical format, creating and encouraging change in current system structures to provide benefit to the entire community. As a Minds of London Middlesex intervention, YCP uses YPAR to engage youth in a meaningful and impactful manner. A youth-led intervention, youth act as co-researchers and are involved with leading all components of the research process, from describing the issue to developing and testing the efficacy and impact of YCP. Appreciative inquiry focuses on the ways in which people interact with their social world and how those interactions sustain their relationships which they engage in. In interviews conducted by members of the Minds of London Middlesex team, an appreciative inquiry approach was used to ask youth and their families about their experience interacting with the mental health care system in London Middlesex and about positive and negative contributors to youth mental health. The appreciative inquiry approach revealed two key findings: that youth and their caregivers reported feeling that some healthcare professionals were disingenuous and felt that their voices were not being heard by all members of their care team, and that child and youth care workers, CYCs, were identified as being allies to the youth in their journey through the mental health care system. The youth reported their relationship with the CYCs as a contributing positively to their mental health. From these findings, it was concluded that both youth and their families preferred a whole person or youth-centered approach when interacting with service providers. The Youth-Centered Practice YCP project is a youth-led intervention which aims to bridge the gaps in relationships between youth and mental health care professionals who serve them. The project's goal is to translate the tacit knowledge of experienced mental health care providers for the purpose of developing an operationalized definition of what constitutes a YCP in mental health care, and further utilizing this information to create and pilot training for service providers on being youth-centered. To better understand what it means for a service provider to be youth-centered, Minds interviewed service providers in London Middlesex. Participants were previously identified by members of the Minds team as already practicing youth-centeredness. 14 mental health care professionals, 8 service providers, and 6 senior students from Fanshawe College's Child and Youth Care program were interviewed. Participants were asked questions relating to how they practice being youth-centered and what steps they took to become youth-centered. A qualitative synthesis was produced from these interviews, and 5 themes and 14 subthemes were identified. The themes of YCP: relationships, with the subthemes humanity/individualize, the ability to form a connection with youth, see the humanity in them, and treat them as individuals. Trust. Service providers take the time to build connections with youth and make the effort to show the youth that they matter. Openness/therapeutic alliance. Service providers are genuine and open with the youth that they serve. The theme: accessibility. Recognizing and removing barriers. Identifying and removing barriers to prevent youth from accessing services. Physical space. The preference of youth for a physical space that is warm and welcoming to youth, more akin to a home than a sterile hospital setting. I think that one of the big things about engendering trust is, number one, not overpromising, because I'm not going to fix anyone. It's just not even relevant to the conversation. Although some people come here with the expectation that they're going to come here and the doctors are going to fix them, and that's just how it works. Quote from service provider. Collaborative. Youth engagement in care planning. The idea that youth should be active participants in their care. Sharing power. In order to achieve collaborative care, the youth-adult hierarchy is stripped down. Power is shared between the youth and the service provider. The focus of the care is the youth, and not the service provider's idea of the youth. Choice/facilitating agency. Youth are recognized as having the right to make their own choices, and it is the job of the service provider to help youth make informed choices that best suit their needs and wants. Training. Self-reflection / similar to affecting change in youth. Self-reflection is used by service providers to check in with themselves and ensure that their emotions are not unduly influencing them and that they can give the best care for the youth that they work with. Proper communication. Clinicians should share with youth about their care so it is easy for youth to understand. Doing so means doing away with jargon and speaking at an appropriate level for the individual youth. Modeling how they want practitioners to interact with youth. Students at Fanshawe College's CYC program are taught to shift their perspectives in order to determine how best to approach different situations they find themselves in and how their reactions can affect youth. Importance of YCP. Youth-centered practice as a teachable concept. One thing common among all the participants interviewed was that they practiced youth-centeredness without being formally taught to do so, whether they came about being youth-centered by trial and error or because of the environment in which they worked. The youth-centered practice was not a part of the curriculum taught as a part of their education. Prioritizing the youth. At the end of the day, it is the service provider's job to help the youth seeking care. Service providers attest that youth can get better when given the correct help. When the job is done right and helping the youth is prioritized above all else, you thrive and go on to live happy lives. We, as clinicians, find joy in helping young people get better. And it's incredibly rewarding because young people do get better. And they do. They are in a developmental stage where they can just blossom into, fantastic, wonderful human beings from having felt very defeated and so undone by their mental health concerns. A quote from the service provider. Youth-centeredness currently exists as tacit knowledge that only some service providers can access in the current child and youth mental health care system. Minds is currently developing a youth-centered practice toolkit that will deliver a curriculum derived from the themes of YCP explored in the qualitative synthesis. The toolkit, as a part of the Youth-Centered Practice Project, seeks to improve mental health care outcomes for youth by training service providers in youth-centeredness, thereby enabling them to form more meaningful and supportive relationships with the youth that they serve. The expected completion of the Youth-Centered Practice Project is fall 2021. Thank you for looking over my poster. For more information, please visit the Minds of London-Middlesex website. Thank you.